Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Our focus this week is the City of Joplin, the Public Works Department, an area that affects all of us daily, and it's the largest department in the city. Joining me, the Director, David Hertzberg. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Judy.
Public Works, people think of roads, but it's much more than that when you think about what's happening.
Yeah, the Public Works, of course, its bread and butter is streets and also the wastewater collection and treatment. But we also include the airport, we include the public transportation, the multimodal portion of the transportation system, and the solid waste and recycling. And so a lot of attributes. We take care of the facilities, the buildings and grounds of the facilities, and so yeah, it's a big world.
So you have a lot going on all the time. Right?
That's right.
Well, today we're going to focus on some of the projects and kind of update the audience on what's been happening. And I know you mentioned the streets. I think I want to start off though, if you could explain, when we hear about projects, this project's underway with street construction, or this project is working on sewers, maybe how this department's funded are these projects. There's a lot of different funding sources.
Right, several, and you're not able to mix and match. Of course, since the tornado, we've got the disaster recovery funds that are dedicated only for a certain area, only for certain activities, and then also we've got the capital improvement sales tax, which is set up for a 10-year program from 2014 to 2024 for transportation. We've got the parks and stormwater tax, which is dedicated to trails, parks, and stormwater issues, and that's 2011 to 2021.
Okay. So you have kind of different pots that you have to draw from.
Exactly.
And so then you have just a general operating budget as well?
We've got general fund funds that come from the general fund that goes into particular projects, and then we've got some other community development funds, enhancement projects. We always try to, with those dollars, leverage or pull in grants and applications from Federal Highway or MoDOT or FAA, and so there's a lot of separate pots that we try to pull in as much for the taxpayers as possible.
So as we talk today and people hear about the many different projects that are underway, you kind of keep in mind that these are being paid for by different project funding sources.
That's correct.
Correct. Well, as we're moving along here in 2018, we have projects underway, and let's talk a little bit about some of the recovery projects. That's something you've been working on for quite a while, and are you getting kind of near the end of those timetables to use those funds?
Yeah. The 2019 is in the fall of 2019 is our goal to be completely complete with those disaster recovery projects. The ones that the infrastructure ones are the ones that Public Works are involved with.
Right.
In particular, the one that just been completed has been the Main Street project, and it came out looking real good at the close. But like whenever you're doing a remodeling in a house while you're trying to live in the house, there's some lane closures and inconvenience during a project, but glad with the way the Main Street project came out, and then now we're doing the 20th Street project, and it'll be what you'll see from the street width will be the same. It'll be a smoother surface, but you'll see sidewalks on both sides, and you'll see some stormwater improvements along the road.
So kind of go along with doing the streets, you need the stormwaters with the drainage.
Exactly.
And when you talked about Main Street, that was really kind of looked like a complete redo of the street. It's not, we're just going to put some new surface on it. You had major projects.
Yeah, from 15th to 20th, that was an old street typical structure that really wasn't holding up. And so, we actually took it all out and worked in the subgrade to improve the subgrade and change that typical section. That area was real flat, and so we did some improvements on the stormwater in that area, so it won't retain or hold, the water as long.
So the drainage will work like it should.
Yeah. And so there's some major changes and improvements. Of course, also the resurfacing all the stretch, and we did some decorative things. as far as some of the crosswalks. They're at 15th and 26th and 20th. And then we had some bump outs in the parking areas, and like say upgraded the sidewalks along the stretch, and came out real nice in the conclusion.
Right. Well, I know we have some pictures we'll look at in a minute, but people have heard about even you're working out into the neighborhoods, kind of in that same area as well.
Yes. What you'll see this coming year, of course, is the 20th Street continuing on, and then we are continuing into the neighborhoods, the disaster recovery neighborhoods, and with some improvements in those neighborhoods with repair of curb and gutter and sidewalk and ADA ramps and resurfacing of those. Now as we go into these neighborhoods, they were based upon prioritization. So we didn't have enough money to do everything.
Every street that's over there. Right.
So we're doing the worst based upon a ranking criteria.
Okay.
So.
Well, let's look at some of the pictures that you have. People who talk about, help us visualize some of the projects that we're talking about today. Of course, this is one that's nice roundabout. Let's explain what we're seeing here in this picture.
This is 32nd and Central City Road, and there on the bottom left-hand side is the St. Mary's facility, and this was a EDA funded. The EDA funded the library. Right. And then also there was some funds that was dedicated to this project, and so it came out to be a real nice project. In the future, we're improving 32nd Street from Schifferdecker out to this roundabout. But right now you've got this nice intersection, and then you've got the old street to get to it.
But that's a future plan. The roundabout will be in place, ready for that road.
And it's a part of the 10-year program, the 32nd connection. Now this is Jackson Avenue, and we're able to we're going to save this low water bridge that's underwater, and it'll be a pedestrian access for trails. Okay. And we're moving the bridge upstream, raise it out of the floodplain. Now the roads connecting, there'll still be times when the road's connecting, but the bridge will be a long-term bridge. Now, never say it will never flood,
right,
because
guess how the water
that doesn't happen. Now here, the water's come down, and you can see the trees and stuff that gets over the facility.
And that low water bridge has been there a long time.
It's a historic marker, literally, for the community, and had strong support to try to save the low water bridge, and we've moved in that direction, and like I say, moved the new bridge upstream. This also, is the example of what we're seeing out on Schifferdecker at the Turkey Creek bridge. It's a low water bridge, and it goes underwater like this location. And both of these projects, you'll see the bridges later this year to start construction.
Okay, so we're not too far off from actually seeing the work underway for these time together. So you mentioned the Main Street. This is an example of what you were doing there?
Yeah, this is the 20th and Main location, and as you can see, we went with some decorative concrete on the crosswalks, and then we're doing some decorative stuff in the middle of 20th Street. Of course, that's all complete, so you can drive down there and look. And this was when it's underway. So, we did a little some aesthetic things. Also, when a truck makes a turning movement on this concrete, it won't rut like an asphalt will. Okay. So there is some practical use of having that middle of that intersection concrete.
The durability of the surface, so you don't have to say we have to go back and repair it after a couple of years.
That's right.
Some more paving, as you mentioned. So.
And as I was explaining, we redid the sidewalks, and they're, as age, they were needing upgraded, and this was a investment to improve and build new the sidewalks and help for investment of the private businesses in that area.
So improving that part of town. Now here we have something called sanitary sewer, which you don't see, but it's a major part of what you're dealing with. It's the sewer and the drainage for everything.
That's right. There was $21 million of sanitary sewer improvements in the disaster recovery area. Relining, upgrading, replacing old lines, cleaning old lines, relining ones that had cracks in them, and manhole work. There's about 30 manholes in that area that were rehabbed. And it's hard to do a really a picture that gives you much impact, but that represented I think 23 miles of sewer in this area. And then also we do with the sanitary sewer funds, which is a part of your sewer bill that you pay. Part of those funds go to upgrading and improving the existing collection system and the treatment plants in the community. If you remember, we've got 2 treatment plants, one in the Shoal Creek Valley, and that comes to the south part of town, and then one on the Turkey Creek branch that takes care of the northern part of the city.
And those facilities have to be upgraded, and for not only the length of time, but I'm sure there's requirements as far as EPA and things like that.
That's correct. Working with the DNR and the EPA and keeping ahead of and being proactive on improvements to have a sustainable system for the environment.
Right. Okay, we have another picture here showing you mentioned 20th Street, so the new sidewalks going in. You're tearing up the old ones and putting new ones down.
That's correct. And one of the notable things on the old 20th Street was there wasn't any sidewalks. And so this is a major improvement of sidewalks on both sides, one of them being wide enough for a shared path. And that'll include next to the high school, that'll connect it to the new viaduct that has the sidewalks on there, and it'll tie into the library, the EDA funded library, and go on out to Range Line.
So all the way across on 20th Street through town. Now, surface projects, so this is something that I guess you kind of have a routine basis. You're always working on surface streets around town.
That's correct. And this funding on these projects are also disaster recovery funds. And so basically, they'll be focusing in on the older neighborhoods, and once again, the worst of the worst as far as damage. But moving off Main Street, and by the end of this year, off of 20th Street, and we'll be focusing in on these neighborhood projects. And really excited about, the improvements of old, literally World War II sidewalks. Because a lot of that development was back in that post World War II boom.
And make them safer, they'll make them more
Make
accessible.
them safer and ADA accessible and all that.
Great. Trails, I know you have you mentioned getting across town on 20th Street, but trails is an area that you're really developing.
Right. We've in the last 10 years have begun a trail program, and this one you're seeing is next to Mercy Park. There'll be the Mahaska Trail that will be disaster funded, and it'll be from Cunningham Park. It'll go down 26th Street and then down 28th. And it'll go next to the new medical center, and then we'll provide a trail through the Mahaska Valley, and then tie into the 26th and Main Street sidewalks.
So this is a whole new project, the Mahaska project.
This is a whole new project, and also we've tied this project in with some MoDOT and Federal Highway alternate transportation funding, and with that we're tying there where it turns at 20th in the university. That there's also a project continuing on what I call St. John's Boulevard. There'll be a trail going along St. John's Boulevard down to 32nd Street.
So people with bikes and walking and biking, they can get a lot of places now without to go on a street surface.
Exactly, and this is a major change and a positive change to address the multimodal bikes, pedestrians, and other ways of non-motorized transportation.
Great. And speaking of this, we also have the video or picture here of Zora Crosswalk. That work was completed last year on Zora. So
that's right. The two that were completed last year was the Zora project, and it was 3-lane, is widened out to the 5-lane, and put in the sidewalks and bike lanes, and also put in a pedestrian crossing at the Frisco Trail. This is on St. Louis, and St. Louis has been a real popular project. It was widened to a 3-lane, and then also had bike lanes on both sides and sidewalks on both sides. So that in our mind has become the new template of a arterial collector street in the city of Joplin, and to provide these trails that cross St. Louis. So we put in these medians in the middle, kind of a protection.
A safety zone if somebody has to pause crossing the street.
A safety zone in the middle, and so they've been real popular, and so excited about those visionary changes in our street design.
Great. So people are seeing these changes around town. They're seeing a lot of things happening. I want to backtrack. You mentioned Connecticut, the project. The bridge is, of course, right now gone. I guess you're working on replacing it. Let's discuss that project, how it's being funded, and what the ultimate goal might be.
It's basically a 50-50 project, with MoDOT bringing in 50% of the funds and the city bringing in 50% of the funds. Our funds are coming from the CIST, Capital Improvements Sales Tax. And so what was there before was, a 2-lane bridge. What you'll see when we get done is a 4-lane bridge with 8-foot sidewalks on each side, for wide enough for shared path with pedestrian and bicycle activities. And excited about the improvements to that bridge. And then in 2019, way off in the future,
it'd be here before you know it,
which will be here before we know it, would be then the construction work on the roads of Connecticut and 44th Street to tie in and make those same improvements. So you have a corridor of 44th Street down to Connecticut, and to Connecticut down to 32nd Street. That would provide access to pedestrians, bikes, and improved driving surface.
Right. As we saw in those pictures on the example in St. Louis, you'd then have that safe area for people to ride their bikes on that side path.
Exactly.
Tying that together. So that project going on throughout most of the upcoming summer then. Is there a timetable when you hope to have that bridge completed?
Yeah, the Connecticut overpass should be completed late, fall.
Fall, okay. Yeah. Of course, you're crossing an interstate, so I'm sure there's some things involved there to build a bridge over an interstate as well.
That's correct.
Tying all that together.
We had an interstate. We actually, 3 nights in about a month ago, we had a I-44 closed during the night and detoured them on 32nd Street. So that was an interesting.
You have to tear the old one down. You have to be able to shut off the traffic.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of bridges, and we're at Missouri Southern, and I know the students and faculty have heard about a bridge working with Missouri Southern. I'd like to have an update of what's happening across the creek, I guess, from the campus to the mall area.
Yeah, and we're anticipating that to take place, the construction, this year. And we're finalizing the right-of-way and what you'll see is Missouri Southern tied into the mall, movie theater area, with a pedestrian bridge over Turkey Creek, and then trails on each side and sidewalks on each side. So excited about that project. Once again, it's a trail, multimodal access for the students here.
And that's kind of a joint project with Missouri Southern too, as far as
yes, Missouri Southern's been real helpful in dedicating right away and doing the maintenance and construction on their side and help, and so it's been a good cooperative effort.
Great. We have a lot of different projects. I'm looking at a list that you provided, capital expenditure projects for the this coming year. A lot of things that you talk about, water, stormwater that people don't see, but you still think about it. When the roads flood, when we have these heavy rains, your department's the one that gets the calls.
Right. Well, what's under construction is 32nd Arizona. There's a detention basin that we're finalizing there, and when it's completed, that it'll help the water downstream, because there'll be a place for that water to be kept be caught and slowed down before it goes downstream, and so it'll affect those. And there's other projects, and of course, you know, you and I have been around long enough when you remember when downtown flooded all the time, and that was kind of our first project of that park stormwater money was that downtown Willow Branch, and literally build a parallel system to the existing system, and it's helped the downtown. And now we're looking at in the future. We've had several detention basins to help. One on 15th there at Murphy Boulevard that's helped the Joplin Creek downstream there. We've got some more in the future there at 7th and Illinois, a future project there, and so excited about those. And then there's a project that you'll see this coming year at 4th and Schools. You'll see some drainage work there in that valley.
So you have some key parts of town where you know you have challenges and you're dealing with them through these projects.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right.
And then once you get the big valleys done, then you'll move into the neighborhoods and start trying to address some of those neighborhood issues.
Well, you mentioned the different tax programs and their expiration dates, the sales taxes and so forth. Each of those, I remember when people voted on them, you had some specific proposals for plans. So do you have kind of a checklist of, you know, here we go, we're in year number 2 and we're going to be doing this? I mean, there's a master plan for all of that.
Exactly. We've got both for the park stormwater and for the CIST. Those are each 10-year programs. And that we have a project list, a timeline list. We meet quarterly with a committee that reviews our progress and you know, keeps an eye on that we're making progress, and then we go back to the voters at the end of those 10 years and say, hey, this is what we've done with the funds that we had. We'd like to continue the funds. This is what we're going to do with the future funds, and so both of them are in their second go round. Right. And so, you know, the second part of the first 10 years is complete, and the second 10 years is depending on which program, how far we're into it. But it's worked good, and think that it's a good use of taxpayer funds.
So some of those projects that people say, I remember it being discussed, but we don't see anything happening, there's things going on behind the scenes, whether you say design or right away or something before you can even get to the point of construction.
That's correct, yeah. You've got the steps of the of design and then right of way. A lot of times you need that right of way, and then after that you've got then utility work and relocation, and then finally your construction. So each step represents about a year of time, and so it you know, it takes like 4 years to complete it. If I said, well, I'm doing something right now, then it's 4 years before it's completed. And
well, what are some of those key projects still on that list that we haven't seen the ground break, more or less, for?
Yeah, on the stormwater side, I'm excited about that 7th in Illinois job. You know, that'll be the last. I can
been known for flooding for a long time.
I can remember, you know, seeing that flooded, and that'll be kind of the last one in a commercial area. Right. You know, that after we're done, that will happen a lot less often, and so that's exciting. The 30 on the streets traffic side, you know, the 32nd Street connecting from Schifferdecker out to that beautiful roundabout is exciting to us. You know, we just got done with the Zora out to Range line. In the future, we want Zora to be improved all the way out to 249. And excited about that, a continuation of that corridor, and 20th Street and some future projects. You know, we've got these. In 2019, you'll see intersection improvements at 32nd and Main, to where you have a free right turn. If you're coming from the interstate, you make a free right turn there.
So a lot of it tying into traffic flow, as you see.
Tying into traffic flow, and then 32nd and Indiana, looking at some right turn lanes at those locations, and 32nd Connecticut, some right turn lanes. So increase the free flow for for those right turn movements. So.
And I'm sure your department keeps a close eye with planning as far as how the town is developing and what areas are going to see future growth in time.
That's exact. Yeah, we do long range transportation plans that we use as our looking at where. We also do origin destination studies that we actually where they're going now and where they're coming from. So that we use that to crystal ball, I guess,
right. Look at the future.
where these improvements need to be.
Well, you mentioned some of the other areas you work with, recycling, of course the airport is involved and so forth. So there's a lot of different areas. Recently we heard about perhaps new flights at the airport. So you're looking at possibilities for the future there as well.
Yeah, like say right now there's the third flight and there's times when that third flight's coming in and then they'll have another break and then have another. But they're using that to use some projections and hopefully to get some additional flights and even to some additional locations. So.
Right. So if people have questions, they would like to know more information, I know you have a website. I guess they can always contact your department if they're curious about what's happening in their neighborhood. Or...
That's correct. We've got the website. We've got emails to all of the, to my department and several of the staff, and like say it's dhertzby@joplinmo.org, and so you can get me there, and a lot of the times I'll get it to a staff member that will do you a good job to get a response and get it completed.
And I think there's ways even to go to your website and sign up for newsletters or news information.
Yep,
as
newsletters
it comes
and our public information officer is doing a good job with other ways to keep that contact with the customer out there.
Great. Well, it sounds like with all the things that you have going on, you're keeping very busy in your department. And
that's right.
The challenge of
right.
keeping up with, sometimes perhaps, keeping up with what's happening in the city as well.
That's right.
And so, David, I'd like to thank you very much for visiting with us today, providing this information for our audience.
I enjoyed it and appreciated you having me out.
Great, thank you. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Hopefully you've gotten a taste of what's coming up in Joplin, what's being done on the streets and the sewers and many projects throughout the area. So as you're out and driving this spring and summer, take a look at what's happening and look towards the future. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on Newsmakers. We'll see you then.